card is called Living Totally. Alexander the Great meets Diogenes. Those who say we are waiting for an opportunity are being deceptive, and they're not deceiving anybody but themselves. The opportunity is not going to come tomorrow. It has already arrived. It has always been here. It was here even when you were not here. Existence is an opportunity. To be is the opportunity. Don't say, tomorrow I will meditate, tomorrow I will love, tomorrow I will have a dancing relationship with existence. Why tomorrow? Tomorrow never comes. Why not now? Why postpone? Postponement is a trick of the mind. It keeps you hoping. And meanwhile, the opportunity is slipping by. And in the end, you will come to the cul-de-sac death, and there will be no more opportunity left. And this has happened many times in the past. You are not new here. You have been born and you have died many, many times. And each time the mind has played the same trick, and you have not yet learned anything. When Alexander the Great was coming to India, he met one strange man, Diogenes. It was a winter morning, a cool breeze was blowing, and Diogenes was lying on the riverbank, taking a sunbath naked. He was a beautiful man. When there is a beautiful soul, a beauty arises which is not of this world. He had nothing, not even a begging bowl, because one day when he was going toward the river with his begging bowl to get some water to drink, he saw a dog rushing to the river. The dog jumped in the river and drank. Diogenes laughed and he said, "This dog has taught me a lesson. If you can live without a begging bowl, then why can't I?" He threw the begging bowl. He also jumped like the dog in the river and drank. Since then he had nothing. And this dog must have felt something for Diogenes because they became friends. They lived together. Alexander had never seen such a graceful man, such utter beauty, something from the unknown. He was in awe and he said, "Sir." He had not said sir to anybody in his life. He said, "Sir, I am immensely impressed by your being, and I would like to do something for you. Is there something that I can do for you?" Diogenes said, "Just stand to the side because you are blocking the sun. That's all. Nothing else do I need." Alexander said, "If I have another chance to come to the earth, I will ask God, instead of making me Alexander again, to make me Diogenes." Diogenes laughed and he said, "Who is preventing you right now? You can become Diogenes. Where are you going? For months I have seen armies moving and moving. Where are you going, and for what?" Alexander said, "I'm going to India to conquer the whole world." "And then what are you going to do?" Diogenes asked. And Alexander said, "Then I will rest." Diogenes laughed again and he said, "You are mad because I am resting now and have not conquered the world. I don't see the necessity of it. Who has told you that before resting you have to conquer the world? And I tell you, if you don't rest now, then you never will. You will never be able to conquer the world, because something or other will always remain to be conquered. And life is short and time is fleeting. You will die in the middle of your journey. Everybody dies in the middle of the journey. And Alexander died in the middle. When he was moving back from India, he died on the way. And that day he remembered Diogenes. Only Diogenes was in his mind. He could never rest in his life, and that man rested. Any feedback on that one?
Yes. No, it had been last time I read it, and I think we had another session where we actually read that same card, and then I was thinking about it as it relates to this week, just procrastination. Making sure that you don't procrastinate, stay in the moment, live in the moment, try to do as much as you can in the moment.
Anybody have any other reflection on that card? Okay, if not, let's do the next one. Which one did you get?
I got wishful thinking.
What number is that?
43.
Wishful thinking. The parable of the wish-fulfilling tree. The thinker is creative with his thoughts. This is one of the most fundamental truths to be understood. All that you experience is your creation. First, you create it, then you experience it, and then you're caught in the experience because you don't know that the source of all exists in you. Once a man was traveling, accidentally he entered the paradise. In the Indian concept of paradise, there are wish-fulfilling trees, kalpataras. You just sit underneath them, desire anything, and immediately it is fulfilled. There is no gap between the desire and its fulfillment. You think and immediately it becomes a thing. The thought realizes automatically. These kalpataras are nothing but symbolic for the mind. Mind is creative with its thoughts. The man was tired, so he fell asleep under a wish-fulfilling tree. When he woke up, he was feeling very hungry, so he said, "I wish I could get some food from somewhere." And immediately food appeared out of nowhere, just floating in the air, delicious food. He immediately started eating, and when he was feeling very satisfied, another thought arose in him. If only I could get something to drink. And there is no prohibition in paradise, so immediately precious wine appeared. Drinking the wine, relaxed in the cool breeze of paradise under the shade of the tree, he started wondering, what is happening? Have I fallen into a dream, or are some ghosts around and playing tricks with me? And ghosts appeared. They were ferocious, horrible, nauseating. He started trembling, and a thought arose in him. Now I am sure to be killed. These people are going to kill me. And he was killed. This parable is an ancient parable of immense significance. Your mind is the wish-fulfilling tree. Whatsoever you think, sooner or later it is fulfilled. Sometimes the gap is such that you have completely forgotten that you had desired it in the first place. Sometimes the gap is of years, or sometimes of lives, so you can't connect the source. But if you watch deeply, you will find all your thoughts are creating you and your life. They create your hell, they create your heaven. They create your misery, they create your joy. They create the negative, they create the positive. Everybody is a magician, spinning and weaving a magic world around himself. And then he is caught. The spider itself is caught in his own web. Once this is understood, things start changing. Then you can play around. Then you can change your hell into heaven. It is just a question of painting it from a different vision. Or if you are so much in love with misery, you can create as much as you want to your heart's content. But then you are never complaining because you know that it is your creation, it is your painting. You cannot make anybody feel responsible for it. Then the whole responsibility is yours. Then a new possibility arises. You can drop creating the world, you can stop creating it. There is no need to create heaven and hell. There is no need to create at all. The creator can relax, retire. That retirement of the mind is meditation. Any feedback?
Lots going on in there. It's interesting to hear like that point of view. Like you're kind of like the mind is way more powerful than I think we give it credit for. You know, and we always talk about like you can't do this. Well, it's mental. If you think you can't do it, then you're not going to be able to do it. You got to kind of rework how you think about things, and it's just really interesting to see that point of view of it. Like he thought it and it happened like right then, but sometimes it's not instant with us, and it's just it definitely hits home for me. So it was really good to hear that.
I thought of it from a writer's perspective. I mean, the thought aside, trying to get those thoughts the way they are in your head into words. Because it can never be as beautiful or as ferocious or as angry or as whatever you're feeling. You can never quite get it. That's the creative process, though, I suppose.
It's parable interpretation of whatever you really visualize.
Right, I mean, it's
yourself.
so hard to get that out. You're just like, okay,
It's the same.
but it's fun.
Yeah, it's the same thing with a piece of art piece. I mean,
Any
just
art.
Think, yeah, any art that you're
Any
doing,
art.
dance. I mean,
Piano, anything,
Yeah.
kung fu.
it's,
So that's the fun part of it, though, is being in the now. Because your thoughts change constantly.
I also thought about it in response to when people are always saying, well, not that good of an artist. I'm like, one of the things I
He is
was
an
always
artist.
that's your interpretation.
Yeah.
You gotta respect that.
It is your art.
Exactly.
Like his. He showed me this thing that he had done and people were laughing at it. It was beautiful. It had motion. It was these little scribbles. Remember that? It was beautiful.
That card just gets me to think about how powerful thoughts can be, like positive or negative, and you could get stuck in the negative. Some people actually enjoy the misery of the negative, and they create it, and they allow it to continue. But you could decide to make it stop. Or you could think positive, like I said, but meditation is basically to stop the thinking altogether, and that's something different.
I mean, it's really establishing a disciplined mindset, I guess, is one way to look at it for me. Having that mindset to say, hey, no matter what these thoughts that are going through my head, I'm in control of my thoughts versus my thoughts being in control of me.
I'm glad you said that, Freddie, because sometimes maybe it is more difficult to shut them off because your thoughts are always flowing. It is, that's why I practice, meditation, really, I don't know of anybody else, but it helps a lot to slow that mind down because it's nearly impossible to get thoughts out of your head.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you think about stuff that, case of an example, as a song goes on, and for whatever reason I just started singing it, and it wasn't one of my favorite songs. It was something that popped in my head, and my family was looking at me like, "Why are you singing it? We know you don't like that song." I'm like, "I don't know. It just started."
It's your earworm. It got in your head. Yeah,
Exactly. I had to get it out.
I've been singing that Missy Elliott song since it came out in my head, or whatever random song pops in there for the day.
But I think for me, that's part of the process that I have to get it out. I gotta verbalize it, visualize it, whatever you gotta do to get it out. Then once it's out, it's like you have more control,
Yes.
or I have more control over.
Purge
when I think
it,
about
play
Purge
it, write
exactly.
it, draw it.
Exactly. You gotta get it out first.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. Anyway, anybody else? Oh, sorry, I'm leaving. Mine is 8, guilt.
I'm still reflecting on this
Oh,
card.
I'm sorry.
So,
It was willful,
wishful
Oh,
thinking.
wishful.
Yeah.
Also gets me to think about wishes. The problem with wishes is that if you wish, it's already showing like a discontent of the current moment. Because if you're in the moment and you're just in the moment with no thinking, then there shouldn't be anything as wishing, because wishing is the mind like projecting the future, that they're not happy with this moment right now. So I think the teaching is aiming towards like clearing the mind of all wishes, because as soon as you start wishing, then you're pretty much acknowledging that this moment is not enough. Also gets me to think about, I think this is a big thing in America where they have this thing about positive thinking. like always think positive and positive. But I think the problem with that is if you favor something as positive and you always say, I always got to be positive, there's going to come a time where automatically you're going to be false because there's no way that you could always be positive. It's like trying to stay awake all the time and just like condemning sleep. Like sleep is a part of life too. So there's wakefulness and then there's sleep. You gotta accept both, and you don't judge either as positive or negative. So if you just keep thinking positive, eventually you're gonna falsify the negative and turn against the negative. But then when you drop thinking altogether and you're in meditation, then there's no positive or negative. You're just in the moment. So I think about like a kid who might think he wishes that he was an adult. So he's not appreciating that moment as a child. So that in itself is not the way. And then an adult could start wishing that he was a kid because he's heading towards death. So the child shouldn't wish that he was an adult. He should just appreciate the moment of being a child. And an adult shouldn't wish he was a kid. He should just appreciate the moment of being an adult. And then the same kind of goes with like riches. People that are poor wish that they were rich. You know, and then the rich, they might wish that they were richer, or whatever the case may be. Like everybody wishes for something, and the meditation is trying to teach you to stop the wishing and just be in the moment.
Yeah, I think people say you can wish your life away. You know, you can spend all your time wishing for this or wishing for that, but you know, if you just live in the moment and do what needs to be done or enjoy what's going on, I think it's more fulfilling than, oh, I wish this or oh, I wish that.
Yeah, it gives me to think about that movie. I brought it up in the other meditation, but it's a silly movie, but I think it's a good visual aid into understanding some of these teaching. The movie's called Click with Adam Sandler, and basically he's just like fast forwarding through his life through remote control. Like he's just like, oh, I wish I was promoted, so he's just like fast forwarding through like everything. Like he argues with his wife, he fast forwards through that. He's at dinner and he's bored, so he fast forwards through that. Like he just keeps fast forwarding through everything. But then the controller kind of malfunctions and it starts fast forwarding by itself. So and then basically he ended up getting like really old and, you know, really overweight because he forgot about his health. But then he ended up getting promoted, but it wasn't like, he looked back in his life and he lost everything that was important. And basically it kind of is really relevant to this card because it's kind of like whatever time period you're going through. Like if you're going through a time period of suffering, like you might wish that you didn't have to suffer, but suffering is a part of life. And if you look at the whole life in perspective, that suffering could have been like the quality of life. If you just bypass off all the suffering and you just want to just get to the reward, then you're pretty much missing out on life, you know. So it's kind of like running a marathon wishing that it's over, but then it's like somebody could just give you the medal and be like, you don't even have to run it. But then it's like you missed out on the whole process of experiencing that whole experience of running through it. And that's kind of how life is. It's like wishing is almost like fast forwarding through life. Like I don't want this, you know, to be in this moment now. I want to look towards the future of what I want. And that's, once again, is the mind taking away your enjoyment of this moment, you know. So, all right, what's the next card for you?
8, guilt.
And that's one is going to be a smaller card, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Guilt. This moment, this here now, is forgotten when you start thinking in terms of achieving something. When the achieving mind arises, you lose contact with the paradise you are in. This is one of the most liberating approaches. It liberates you right now. Forget all about sin and forget all about saintliness. Both are stupid. Both together have destroyed all the joys of humanity. The sinner is feeling guilty, hence his joy is lost. How can you enjoy life if you're continuously feeling guilty? If you're continuously going to church to confess that you have done this wrong and that wrong, and wrong and wrong and wrong, your whole life seems to be made of sins. How can you live joyously? It becomes impossible to delight in life. You become heavy loaded. Guilt sits on your chest like a rock. It crushes you. It does not allow you to dance. How can you dance? How can guilt dance? How can guilt sing? How can guilt love? How can guilt live? So the one who thinks he is doing something wrong is guilty, burdened, dead before death, has already entered into the grave. Guilt is one of the most destructive emotions in which we can get caught. If we have wronged another or gone against our own truth, then of course we will feel bad. But to let ourselves be overwhelmed with guilt is to invite a migraine. We end up surrounded by nagging clouds of self-doubt and feelings of worthlessness to the point where we cannot see any of the beauty and joy that life is trying to offer us. We all long to be better people, more loving, more aware, more true to ourselves. But when we punish ourselves for our failures by feeling guilty, we can get locked into the cycle of despair and hopelessness that robs us all of clarity about ourselves and the situations we encounter. We are absolutely okay as you are, and it is absolutely natural to go astray from time to time. Just learn from it, move on, and use the lesson not to make the same mistake again. Reflection.
Yeah. I was going through a real spiritual journey, as we all do. But anyway, being interested in like different religions and philosophies has been going on for a while. Buddhism, Judaism, Kabbalah, whatever it is that I'm interested in. So anyway, I finally deconverted officially from Catholicism and Christianity, and for me, my life has been so much better ever since. Because it wasn't working. I felt awful. I was doing something wrong all the time. I was paying for someone's sins, say, 6,000 years ago. And everything I did was wrong, guilty, and since then, I just feel better. I'm not crushed like the rock anymore. And my life is better. That's my path.
Anybody else have to say anything about that card?
I think that kind of hits us. It's not feeling like as if you had a burden on you. I think at some level we all have some guilt for whatever reason. It's a matter of being able to take it in and then, for lack of a better word, compartmentalize it and say, hey, yes, something may have gone wrong, but it's not me necessarily. It's the situation and seeing it in reference to what you're going through at that time.
Yeah.
Once again, being in that moment, in that time, and then being able to learn from it and then move on. Everybody has that journey to go through.
And sometimes it can be very long journeys, but then when you get there, it's amazing.
Yeah, guilt can paralyze you if it really gets to you. It can paralyze you in that moment.
can't
where
be
you
you.
just can't. You just can't get over it. But like you said, if you can just kind of get through it, purge it, and be able to move past it, that's
I think guilt is extremely destructive. It's the religions and the politicians, the government, the law, that's their way to control you, is through guilt. It's like what they do is they put like a police officer in your brain that's telling you this is right, this is wrong. Anytime you do anything wrong, the police officer in your mind punishes you, and that punishment could be worse than the outside punishment. So it's like you're never free from the society, because the society implanted the guilt. It's like a microchip that they implanted into your brain to kind of monitor everything that you're doing. And the problem is that this idea of right and wrong, and it's not universal. So one culture might see something that's good, while another culture sees it as bad. And you could be doing something, and then this culture is condemning you, while this culture is praising you. And that becomes a problem, because like you're not really truly living like your life, fully, because your thoughts on guilt is just preventing you from enjoying life, because you're just condemning yourself for everything. So you gotta free that. You gotta pretty much take that chip that's implanted in your brain, take it out, and follow your heart and live fully, free from guilt. But you still need to be aware of the law and what is allowed and what's not allowed, so you don't get in trouble with the law. But if it's not against the law, then a lot of times, you need to just basically, let that guilt go and just enjoy life.
You also go back to what you were talking about, not always thinking positively, but it's having a positive focus. I mean, that's kind of the way I approach it. Is, there's some days you go in and you face certain things, you're a little bit more positive than the other day, and that outward expression of it, people see and then they respond to it. And there's other times they're looking and say, what's going on? I'm like, I still have a positive focus. Just that today it's a little harder, and today I got to kind of work at it a little bit, but it doesn't mean that I'm always going to be, yeah. It's more like, I believe things will work out, versus, never really believing that. And, once again, having that guilt for whatever situation or situations kind of weighing you down and making you kind of, have that really negative view of your situation, that time, that point in time, maintain a positive focus. Doesn't mean you always have to be positive, but it means that you have to have a positive focus.
I think it goes into balance, is what you said, like for me, I'm a high energy type personality, so people might perceive that as, gosh, this guy is always silly and stuff or whatever, or excited. And it may come across that way, that's their perception, and I'm fine with that. But, there is balance, you have to pull back sometimes and listen.
What card did you get?
Dropping the Past, 51.
Okay. We're gonna read that one next week. Okay. Alright, thank you for coming out. That's good meditation for today. Continue on next week.